It all started on a quiet Tuesday morning in a well-manicured suburban neighborhood, one of those places where the homeowners association keeps everything under strict control. From the color of your mailbox to the length of your grass, nothing escapes their watchful eyes. But today, something much bigger was about to unfold, something that would shake up their perfect little bubble. Monica, a confident black woman in a sleek black blazer, pulled into the HOA community for a scheduled meeting. Call collected, and carrying nothing but a laptop and a coffee in hand, she was there on official business. But she didn't even make it to the building before trouble found her. Karen, a longtime HOA board member known for her sharp tongue and snide comments, spotted Monica from across the parking lot. With one glance, she assumed Monica was the assistant or maybe even the event help. She marched over, barking orders with that unmistakable, entitled tone, not even giving Monica a chance to speak. "You're late. The coffee should have been here." "By 9, Karen snapped, her voice full of condescension. Monica raised an eyebrow, staying calm but saying nothing yet. She knew exactly what was happening, and she knew exactly how this would play out. What Karen didn't realize was that Monica wasn't here to serve coffee. She was here to lead the entire meeting. Why? Because Monica wasn't anyone's assistant. She was the CEO of the development company that just bought out half the neighborhood. As the board members began to gather inside, tension buzzed in the air. Karen's smug expression wouldn't last long, and Monica had every intention of letting the truth reveal itself in the most professional but unforgettable way possible. What happens next? You'll want to stick around to see the look on Karen's face. Monica stepped into the conference room like she owned it, because, technically, she did. The development firm she led had just secured a massive investment deal to revitalize underperforming HOA communities, and this one was at the top of the list. Still, she kept her cool, waiting to be introduced formally while Karen continued to whisper to another board member, likely still assuming Monica was some sort of assistant or intern. The arrogance in the room was almost thick enough to cut with a knife. Karen had always prided herself on being in charge of this neighborhood, even though she wasn't elected to anything that truly mattered. Her influence came from intimidation and a knack for controlling the HOA board with guilt trips and aggressive emails. But today, she was facing someone who didn't flinch under pressure, and that unsettled her more than she realized. As the other board members shuffled papers and settled in, one of them, an older man named Richard, finally glanced up from the agenda and asked, "So, is the representative from the development firm here yet?" Monica gave a small, polite smile and stood. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Monica Ellis, CEO of Ellis Urban Developments. It's a pleasure to meet you all." You could hear a pin drop. Karen blinked, her mouth slightly open, completely thrown off. For the first time in the meeting room's history, she had nothing to say. Richard looked back at his notes, then at Monica, clearly embarrassed he hadn't recognized her earlier. Monica, composed as ever, continued with her introduction, as if nothing had happened. But beneath the surface, the mood had shifted. Some of the board members were curious, others uncomfortable. And Karen, she was already plotting how to regain control. What Monica said next would either unite the board or expose just how deep the bias ran in their so-called perfect community. Monica continued her presentation, her tone professional, calm, and backed by years of leadership and experience. She outlined the company's plans for improving infrastructure, increasing property values, and modernizing the community without stripping it of its charm. The board listened, but not everyone was on the same page. Karen sat stiffly in her chair, arms crossed, her eyes darting from Monica to the other members, like she was silently daring someone to challenge her growing frustration, while Monica explained the proposed upgrades, eco-friendly lighting, better Drainage systems, safer walking paths. Karen suddenly raised her hand with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That all sounds very ambitious," she said, her voice laced with false sweetness. "But has your company ever worked with a community as particular as ours? We have standards." Monica didn't blink. "Yes, we've worked with over 20 HOA communities across the state, including a few that had reputations for being, let's say, resistant to change." Her words were polite, but the subtext wasn't lost on anyone. Another board member, Lisa, chimed in. She'd always been caught between siding with Karen and doing what was actually right for the neighborhood. "What kind of timeline are we looking at for the first phase?" People are already nervous about construction, noise, and disruption. Before Monica could answer, Karen jumped in again. "And where exactly do you plan to put those upgraded utilities? We've already had complaints about strangers walking through private yards." It was clear now this wasn't just about improvements. This was about control. Karen saw Monica as a threat, not just because she was the CEO, but because she had a quiet strength that couldn't be shaken. Meanwhile, whispers had started circulating outside the meeting room. Some homeowners were beginning to question Karen's influence. One resident had even emailed the board anonymously, asking why Karen treated certain guests with more hostility than others. Monica could feel it. This wasn't just a business negotiation, it was a power struggle. And the cracks in the HOA's unity were starting to show. The air in the room grew heavier with every word Monica spoke. Her composure never slipped, even as Karen's tone grew sharper, more defensive. Monica laid out the second phase of the plan, one that involved reevaluating outdated HOA policies and giving residents a bigger voice in decisions. That's when the real tension broke through the surface. Karen slammed her pen down, interrupting with a forced laugh. "So, now you're saying the people who actually live here, many of whom don't understand the long-term impact of development, should be the ones making decisions?" "That's not how we do things here." Monica looked at her, eyes steady. "And how has that worked out for the community so far?" "I've read the complaint logs, the delayed maintenance requests, the denied renovation appeals. People want to be heard. They deserve to be." A hush fell over the board. Richard cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable but unable to deny the truth. Lisa nervously fidgeted with her papers. No one dared speak. Monica's words didn't just expose inefficiency, they questioned the very foundation of Karen's authority. Outside the conference room, word had spread that a major shift could be coming. Homeowners gathered in small clusters, whispering about the woman from the development firm. Some were cautiously hopeful, others skeptical. One elderly neighbor, Mr. Patel, who'd lived there for over 30 years, said quietly, "If she's really here to clean this place up and not just profit off it, I say give her a chance." Inside, Karen leaned forward, her voice low and tight. "You don't know this place. You don't know these people. They trust me." Monica didn't flinch. "They may have, but trust comes from transparency and results, not fear." Karen's face flushed. She knew she was losing ground. But she wasn't done fighting. Monica, meanwhile, could sense that something bigger was building, something that would either dismantle the toxic status quo or spark an even deeper divide. And that moment was getting dangerously close. It all started on a quiet Saturday morning. My wife and I were outside, just enjoying our little patch of sunshine, trimming the hedges and planting some flowers. Nothing fancy, just a peaceful morning like we always hoped for when we moved into this neighborhood. But peace doesn't last long when your next-door neighbor is the queen of entitlement. Yep, Karen, the self-declared ruler of the cul-de-sac, came storming over with that familiar scowl on her face and her yappy little dog in tow. She was convinced again that we had somehow crossed the invisible line between our lawns, claiming we had stolen her grass. At first, my wife tried to stay calm, polite even, reminding Karen that the property lines were clearly marked. But Karen wasn't having it. Her voice got louder, and before we knew it, she was stepping up. Finger in my wife's face, demanding we move our stuff back before things get ugly. What Karen didn't know, though, was that she just picked a fight with the wrong person, because my wife. She's a professional MMA fighter, calm, focused, and trained to keep her cool under pressure. But that doesn't mean she's someone you want to push too far. The thing is, we never wanted trouble. We moved here for peace, to get away from the noise and the drama. But somehow, trouble found us anyway in the form of an entitled neighbor. Who thought intimidation would get her way? What happened next wasn't what anyone expected. Karen's attitude hit a wall she didn't see coming. And let's just say things didn't go as she planned. Stick around. Because what happened after that argument in the yard will leave you speechless. Trust me, won't want to miss how this showdown really ended. To really understand how things got to that point, you need to know a bit more about Karen and why this wasn't her first outburst. Since the day we moved in, she had a habit of finding something to complain about, whether it was where our trash cans were placed, how loud our wind chimes sounded, or even how often we watered our plants. She acted like the whole street was her personal kingdom, the lawn space thing. That was just her latest excuse to stir up drama. Now my wife, Sarah, isn't just some tough fighter. She's got years of discipline under her belt, a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and a calm head that most people would envy. But she's also someone who values respect, especially in her own home. We'd both tried to be friendly when we first moved in. Brought over cookies, said hello, the whole neighborly routine. Karen just gave us side eyes and slammed her door. So over time, we stopped trying. The lawn in question was just a small patch, not even worth the fuss. A corner where our gardens slightly met hers near the sidewalk, with a few potted plants. But Karen swore we were creeping in, and this morning, she came out like she was ready for battle. She didn't expect my wife to stand her ground without even raising her voice. That's when things really started to shift. Karen's yelling turned into wild accusations, saying we were threatening her property, even though all we were doing was pulling weeds. Neighbors peeked out from windows, pretending not to watch, but everyone could feel the tension growing. It was like the calm before a storm, and no one really knew what Karen would do next. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Sarah wasn't someone you could push around. And Karen was about to find that out the hard way. Karen stepped even closer, her face red and voice sharp, waving her phone in the air like it was some kind of weapon. "I'm calling the HOA." She snapped, like that threat alone would make us shrink. But honestly, we weren't worried. We had already spoken to the HOA months ago and had written proof that the lawn line was exactly where we kept it. Still, something about the way Karen looked at Sarah made my stomach twist. Oh, guys, it wasn't just annoyance anymore, it felt personal. Like she needed to prove something as Karen dialed and shouted into her phone. A few neighbors began to drift outside, pretending to take out trash or walk their dogs. It was subtle, but we saw it. Mrs. Patel from across the street stood by her mailbox, eyes darting between Karen and us. She gave us a small shake of her head, like she'd seen this show before. And that's when another layer of this story came out. Apparently, Karen had done the same thing to a young couple 2 doors down, accused them of breaking zoning rules because they painted their door a color she didn't like. They moved out 6 months later. While Karen ranted on the phone, Sarah stayed grounded. She didn't interrupt, didn't react, just watched with that calm focus I'd seen her use in the ring. But beneath it, I could tell she wasn't just standing up for our lawn. This was about more than space. It was about boundaries, respect, and not letting someone bully their way through life unchecked.